Storms do not destroy wood by force alone. They expose mistakes. Wind-driven rain, repeated soaking, rapid drying, freeze-thaw cycles, and shifting humidity test timber in ways fair weather never does. Modern wood often fails not because it is weak, but because it is trapped, sealed, and denied the ability to recover. Medieval and Viking-era builders faced harsher storms with fewer resources, yet their wood endured. The trick they relied on was not protection from storms, but preparation for them. Once understood, it explains why some timber grows weaker with every storm, while other wood grows stronger. Why ancient builders prepared wood to survive moisture instead of avoiding it. Rain was unavoidable in the north. Vikings and medieval builders did not pretend otherwise. Instead of trying to block water entirely, they focused on ensuring that wood never stayed wet long enough to lose strength. Their trick was based on moisture movement. Wood that absorbs limited moisture and releases it quickly retains its structural integrity. Wood that traps moisture internally begins to break down after only a few storms. How timber seasoning created storm resistance before construction ever began. The process started with patience. Trees were often felled during colder seasons when sap levels were lowest. Less sap meant fewer sugars to attract decay organisms. After cutting, timber was not rushed into buildings. It was seasoned slowly in open air, elevated off the ground and exposed to steady airflow. This gradual drying reduced internal stresses and collapsed microscopic channels that draw water inward later. You know, modern builders can actually apply this by air-drying wood intended for outdoor use, rather than relying entirely on fast kiln-dried lumber, which tends to absorb water aggressively once exposed. So, why did controlled soaking strengthen wood instead of weakening it? Well, that's a fascinating bit of traditional know-how. One of the most misunderstood ancient practices was soaking timber in cold water before use. Logs were, quite simply, submerged in rivers, lakes, or coastal waters for extended periods. So, this process flushed out sugars and nutrients that, actually fuel decay. Cold temperatures slowed biological activity, which really helped prevent rot during the whole process. After slow drying, the wood became less absorbent and, more dimensionally stable. Wood treated in this way withstands repeated storms, since it no longer provides a hospitable environment for fungi. These days, untreated wood can be soaked in clean, cold water for weeks or even months, then dried slowly under cover with good airflow. The result is wood that honestly sheds storm moisture far more effectively. So, let's talk about how surface hardening protected wood without sealing it shut. Ancient builders rarely relied on surface coatings to protect structural timber. Instead, they, hardened the surface itself. Light charring, smoke curing, and mineral exposure reduced surface absorbency and created hostile conditions for insects and fungi. Unlike paint or sealants, these methods did not trap moisture beneath the surface. After a storm, water ran off quickly and evaporation began immediately. This is why charred posts and beams often outlast painted ones by decades. These days, modern builders can apply controlled charring to exterior timbers, brushing away loose carbon while preserving the hardened surface beneath. Why structural design mattered more than any treatment once storms arrived. The trick extended beyond the wood itself. Ancient structures were designed to dry quickly. Roofs were steep, shedding water immediately, and overhangs protected walls. Posts were raised on stone rather than buried in soil. Beams were positioned to allow airflow on all sides. These decisions ensured that after a storm, wood returned to a dry state rapidly. Storm resistance is not about preventing wetting, but guaranteeing drying. Even untreated wood lasts far longer when it is allowed to dry completely between storms. So, joinery actually prevented storm-driven decay from starting invisibly, Modern sealed joints often trap moisture where it simply cannot escape. Ancient joinery, on the other hand, assumed water intrusion and allowed it to drain. Pegged joints permitted movement without cracking. And, gaps were intentional where water needed a path out. This openness prevented hidden decay from taking hold. Builders today can adopt this principle by avoiding airtight joints in exposed structures and, prioritizing drainage and airflow. Why repeated storms actually strengthened properly prepared wood. Wood that is allowed to wet and dry naturally undergoes a hardening process. Fibers tighten, resins oxidize, surface density increases. Each storm becomes part of the strengthening cycle rather than a step toward failure. This is why, ancient docks, ships, and exposed beams often became tougher over time. The trick was not resisting storms, but adapting to them. How to apply this storm-proof method today? Select dense, untreated wood whenever possible, favouring heartwood. Season it slowly with airflow. And, consider controlled soaking to remove decay nutrients. Harden surfaces through charring or smoke instead of synthetic coatings. Also, design structures to elevate wood, shed water aggressively, and allow air to circulate freely. Accept weathering as a sign of resilience, not neglect. These steps do not require advanced tools or chemicals. They require understanding and patience. Why modern solutions struggle where ancient methods succeed. Modern sealants promise convenience, but often fail by trapping moisture and hiding decay until it is too late. Ancient builders could not afford failure. Their trick works because it respects how wood behaves under real conditions, especially storms. If you value knowledge proven by centuries of harsh weather rather than decades of marketing, subscribe to Thermal Vault. Share this guide with serious builders and history enthusiasts, and help keep these time-tested methods alive for the future.